Hey everyone, welcome back to the OrtoTech Garage. My name is Keith. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about belts and more specifically what's known as a serpentine belt or multi-rib belt. I want to give you guys a few easy pointers, some tips and tricks to help you make your belt installation just a little bit more successful and a little bit less stressful. And let's get right into it. I've got here a few of these serpentine or multi-rib belts, and just kind of want to give you a couple of examples of what they might look like. Some of these belts are very small, I could say even smaller than this, and some of them get super long like this one. They're all over the place. But what I really want to get out of this part of that section is that these belts have a certain number of grooves on them, or ribs, okay? So when you turn this belt inside out, you're going to see these grooves and ribs, and you need to make sure that when you purchase a belt and you're going to install your belt, that your belt has the same number of grooves as the one you're replacing, okay? So if you look at these, if I stack these two next to each other, you can see one is much wider than the other, and that's really important. Some of these are just off one groove or one rib, and if you put in the wrong belt on there, it's not going to go the full width of the pulley. It's not going to have the same tension, and you're really just kind of setting yourself up for failure. The same would apply if you put one that has an extra rib. You're actually probably just going to split the belt down that groove eventually. So let's make sure we're putting the right part on there, make sure you're counting the grooves on there. And also I would like to see you guys when you're installing to take these belts and your old one, your new one, and do something like this. Put your thumb on either side of it. I'm going to drop this here so I can kind of show you a little bit better. It might be better on this belt even. What I'd like you to do is stick your thumbs in the belt. Take your old one and your new one and match them up. So put them both on your thumb and stretch them out and just make sure you have the correct length on both of them. That's probably the easiest way to do that at home. There are some belt measuring tools that you can use. Obviously you probably won't have that. It wouldn't make sense. So just checking your product here before you make the exchange. This car we're working on here only has one belt, and generally speaking, a serpentine belt has been used to define a car that really has only one belt. So the purpose of the serpentine belt is just to serpentine its way or wrap its way around all these different pulleys. This particular vehicle here that we're working on has got an air conditioning compressor, a power steering pump, an alternator, an idler pulley, a tensioner pulley, a water pump, and a crankshaft. So we've got a lot of different components that are spinning around in there. The belt needs to connect all of those together and get powered by the crankshaft. And this is really where the term serpentine belt came from. And as I explained to you earlier, serpentine belt's kind of a nickname, but these are multi-rib belts and they come in different widths. It's possible you've got more than one belt on there, 2 or 3. Just check your particular vehicle, see what you're working on. Make sure you have all the belts. It doesn't make sense to just put one belt on your vehicle if you're going to be in there doing this work. Get the 2 or 3 that you need and replace them all at the same time. On this vehicle and in vehicles similar to this, the belt tension is supplied by an automatic belt tensioner. Basically, it's usually a spring-loaded device. That device is going to have some spring tension against the belt, and that's going to keep the belt tensioned properly all the time. When we're doing this job, it's important that you be careful. We're working with springs. They can have a lot of energy stored in them, especially once you really compress them. So just be extra careful as you're working on this job. Don't get your fingers stuck anywhere. Sometimes if you've got a tool on the tensioner and you're tensioning it back, and then once you get that belt out of the way, it's going to want to come back further than you were used to, and you might get your hand pinched between a pulley and your wrench or something like that. So just want to make sure you guys are being safe out there while you're working and you're aware of this possibility. I want to show you some of these components on the inside here and how I want to prepare to take this belt off before we get started. So before we take this belt off, I think it's important that you create yourself a little bit of a diagram. A lot of times when you take this belt off, you think you've got a pretty good memory, and I can tell you I've done a lot of this on my own. I think I've worked on one of these vehicles, this exact vehicle, probably 100 times. I think I know the belt routing, but once you get the belt off and you start doing something else and you come back over and you look at it and you go, man, I just don't remember, did that go under or over this pulley? The easiest thing to do is draw yourself a little diagram. So that's what I usually do. I take a mental picture of this, where these components are, and I'll draw just some little circles to identify each one. Try to get the size somewhat correct. I think that helps you, just the differences in size. If you got a small pulley, draw a small one. If you got a big pulley, draw a big one. And then connect those belts between the pulleys in the order that makes sense. Make sure you're going around the outside of the pulley and around the inside of the pulley as you do it. You're basically just connecting the circles with a straight line. If you do this, that's going to help you remember how to put this belt back on afterwards. I promise you, that if you do enough of these, you're going to come across one that you couldn't remember which way the belt went. And there are certain cars out there that they're very close in either direction. One side is going to be hard to get on, and one's going to be the right way to get on. You might even find one that you can get it on the wrong way, and it's not going to work for you. So just make sure you're copying down your belt routing first. If you have access to a manual and it shows you the belt routing, that's even better. But if you don't have that, don't fret. Just draw out a little sketch for yourself and make sure you're prepared to take this belt off. If for some reason you pull the belt off and you can't remember the routing, you can certainly use the internet as your friend and your guide. Go search your belt routing for your vehicle and see if you can find the correct belt routing. All right, so when I talked about drawing out your map here for your Serpentine belt routing, I mentioned trying to get these pulley sizes, maybe a little bit closer to accurate as far as the difference between the big ones and the small ones. And I want to describe what some of these components are in here, if you can see them. So this is the alternator and the alternator pulley. This is our tensioner, which is spring-loaded, and the pulley for that. We've got an idler pulley here. This is our water pump and fan clutch pulley. Down at the bottom here, we've got the crankshaft. That's the harmonic balancer. And then over here, to the right of the idler pulley, we have a power steering pump pulley. And then all the way over here on the opposite side of the car, this is the air conditioning compressor. Okay, and then the belt is going to connect all. So when I told you to draw your routing, you just want to come from the outside of the pulley to the next one, or from the outside pulley to the inside of the idler pulley. And when you're done, you should come up with your schematic that looks something like this. Okay, and you see how I made my alternator pulley a little bit smaller, my tensioner and my crankshaft is quite a bit bigger, and so is the AC compressor and power steering. So it just helps give you a little bit of a visual guide here as you connect the lines from pulley to pulley and make sure you're going correct to the inside or the outside of the next pulley when you do that. So now we're going to use our 3/8 drive ratchet. There's a 3/8 drive square hole that fits this ratchet on this vehicle. And then we're going to put it right in here in the tensioner. And then all we have to do is move it this pulley has to go in this direction to release the tension on here. And sometimes if you just push on it, you can see which direction you have to go. So as I'm pushing on the belt, it doesn't really matter where, somewhere where you can get it to move, it'll show you which way to go. So this one I have to move that way, which means I'm going to move my ratchet the opposite way. And you can see how it takes all the tension off the belt. Okay. Now the thing I was trying to warn you about here is where my ratchet is, it stops here because it's up against the belt now, it's tension. But once I take this belt off, this ratchet's gonna probably come down further this way. It might come all the way down here. So be careful you don't pinch your fingers anywhere near this pulley or anything. If you have to give yourself a little bit more room, you could start in a different area like here, okay? This way when you let this go, maybe your ratchet stops back over here. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. We're just actually going to take some tension off of there. We're going to slip the belt off. And then we're going to let this tensioner come all the way back wherever it stops. Okay, right there is good, and we can take the tool out. Now the belt is disengaged, and we're going to pull it off all of the pulleys here. We're going to let it come off everything. We've got our diagram. We're not scared. Okay. And if you have to get between things, you turn this belt sideways and you can slip it between components. Okay, we're going to come right here in between these two pulleys and pull this belt out. And then we're just going to take it off here around the crankshaft, and out comes the belt. Okay, and this is what I was telling you, that you want to stick your fingers in there, you get your new belt on it, match them up, and we're ready to go back together. Okay, so really that simple on this car, not a big deal. With the belt off, this is a good opportunity to check all your pulleys, see if you feel any grinding in them, if any of the pulleys feel like they're loose, moving side to side. I like to go through and just kind of spin everything to make sure they spin free. Listen to them and see if you hear any excessive noise in any of these pulleys. You wiggle them side to side, make sure they're not loose. Same thing with this idler pulley. You can spin your fan around. You can even grab the fan blade and pull it in and out and see if you feel any looseness there. Okay. Same thing with your air conditioning compressor and your power steering. A good idea to inspect these, make sure there's no nicks or chips in there. Sometimes when guys are working in here, they drop something, maybe they dent one of these ribs on the pulley. You need to know if there's something on there that might prematurely wear the new belt that you're planning on putting on there. Okay. If If you see any wear or any problems with any of these pulleys, obviously that's something you'll need to address before you put the new belt on. It's important that you guys understand that the grooved pulleys are going to be riding on the groove side of the belt, and the flat pulley here with no ribs on it is going to be on the flat side of the belt, the back side of the belt. So just make sure you keep that in mind when you're putting these belts back on. If you've got it for some reason routed wrong and you've got the grooved side running on a flat pulley or vice versa, obviously something is wrong. All right, we're going to stick this belt back on here. I'm going to demonstrate how to route it back in. It doesn't really matter. There's going to be some writing on this belt, but it's not directional. But just for the sake of a clean installation, I would say find the writing on it and make sure it faces out to the person that might actually be reading it. It's just a cleaner install, and it looks a little more professional when you do it that way. All right, I'm going to start by feeding this belt across the engine in between these two flat pulleys. And then I'm going to pull it all the way across in this narrow gap until I can get around the air conditioning compressor and up and over the power steering pump. I hope you can see this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way backwards now around the crankshaft pulley, the harmonic balancer, and slide this belt into the ribs where they go. Okay? Now, the last connection that I'm going to make can either be up here at the alternator or it can be over here at the tensioner. That's up to you how you want to do it. Depends where your hands have to go and how much room you have. Now we can do this just the way we took it off. I'll probably just route it on the alternator. All right, so now that we've got it wrapped back around all the pulleys, the correct routing is confirmed here with my little diagram that I drew. I want to confirm that I have the belt installed on all the pulleys correctly. I want to make sure it's not hanging off anywhere on the inside or the outside. And I want to make sure that it's sitting in the middle of these flat pulleys where the wear marks are. And this is going to make sure that everything is aligned properly before I put the tension back on the belt. And once I tension it, if it's off, then we'll have to, untension it and reinstall it again. So I've got the belt just kind of dangling here. And the last connection is going to be right here at the tensioner pulley. We'll put our tool back in, and then we're going to go ahead and move the tensioner down far enough to slip the belt on. Now, I don't recommend going too far if you can avoid it. On the vehicles with older cars, if you give it too much tension, a lot of times these things are close to their last leg. You might actually make the tensioner start to fall apart, and then you're going to have to replace it. So that's it. The belt is on, and we're going to go ahead and double check our alignment one more time. And everything looks good. And you've installed your belt. It's that easy. I'm happy to do this demonstration for you guys. I'm sure you're enjoying this. I wanted to mention that there are a lot of other types of belts out there besides the Serpentine belt. Most common belt is actually the V belt. You'll see that on a lot of older vehicles especially, but even some of the newer cars you might find one on there. V belts are usually going to tension quite a bit differently than a Serpentine belt. This tutorial doesn't include those V belts. At some point, if you guys would like to see that, I'm happy to make you a tutorial on how to replace some V belts. There's definitely a little bit different procedure, and the tensioning is not automatic usually, so something you'll have to make sure you adjust the tension on your own and you do it properly. You don't want to over tighten those or leave them loose. You'll get noises or you'll wear out bearings and pumps and things. So anyway, I appreciate you guys following along on this video. I'm sure you learned a little bit here, give you some confidence to get out there and change the belt on your own vehicle if you've got one like this. Make sure you follow your owner's manual, your repair manual for the proper procedures on your car. Keep yourself out of trouble. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our content so we can bring you some more, and we'll see you in the next video.